Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or evening. I guess maybe it's evening wherever you are. My name is Kathy, and I'm a compulsive overeater. And I'm trying to speak slowly. I think I speak fast, just normally, but I heard my recording on another Spanish-speaking meeting a while ago, and the recording sped it up even more. It was kind of like listening to the chipmunks anyway. So I will try to speak, slow it down. Thank you. So my name is Kathy, and I am a compulsive overeater, and I am abstinent today through the grace of God and the fellowship of this program. I weigh and measure my food 3 meals a day from the GreySheet without exception. I commit my meal to my sponsor, and I don't eat no matter what. And abstinence is the most important thing in my life without exception. It's really a privilege to come to this meeting and to see how the message of GreySheet has spread throughout the world. I went to my first GreySheet meeting in July of 1982, and it took me 9 months to get abstinent. At that time, the only Cambridge GreySheet meetings were in the town or city of Cambridge. It's a town right next to Boston in Massachusetts, United States. But at that time, it was part of OA, regular OA, and you could get a GreySheet at regular meetings, and you could get a sponsor to sponsor you doing the GreySheet at regular meetings. Anyway, the way I was introduced to GreySheet was that I was working with someone who was a GreySheeter, and she spotted me. It wasn't hard. And she gave me a GreySheet, and she said, go to a meeting. The meetings are in Cambridge. And I was about 10 minutes. My job was about 10 minutes from Harvard Square, where the meetings were. And I thought it was going to be like Weight Watchers. I thought I was going to another diet, because for most of my life, I had been able to diet and get close to my goal weight, never quite there, but close. And never thought about, once I'm near my goal weight, that I would just continue with the way I was eating. It was like, once I got close to where I wanted to be, it was permission to eat again. And so, of course, the weight just came on, and I didn't understand that. I thought if I weighed myself every day, that I would never let myself, go above more than gaining a pound. But that didn't work, because I wouldn't get on the scale every day, because I wanted to eat. Anyway, so I went to a GreySheet meeting in Harvard Square in Cambridge, thinking I was going to something like Weight Watchers. And that first meeting, I remember so clearly hearing in the preamble. First of all, I heard you had to have 90 days of abstinence to lead a meeting. And my heart just sank. I thought, there is no way I will ever be able to do this for 90 days. Anybody who can do this for 90 days does not eat the way that I do. You don't think about food the way that I do. We're not the same animal. And then I heard people talking about having a disease and being addicts. And I thought, I don't have a disease. I just need to lose weight. And I'm not an addict. These people are a bunch of drama queens. So I came away with both thoughts: worse than, better than, sicker than, not as sick as. But I came away with hope. I didn't know it then, but I know it now, because looking back, I started going to meetings. There were meetings in Cambridge every day at that time. And I just went to meetings all the time. And I had a good laugh at every meeting, because people were talking about doing the craziest things with food, hiding food, eating out of, hiding food, stealing food, eating out of the garbage, or, vomiting and not knowing what to do with the vomit. So vomiting into a garbage bag and sticking it in a desk drawer at work because they had another client coming in, all stuff like that. And everybody was laughing, and I was laughing right along with everybody else. A normal person would think, that's really sick. I thought it was funny because I was doing the same thing. And I couldn't believe people were talking about this out loud in front of other people. But I still didn't think I needed the program. And then someone said to me, oh, let's go to one of the regular meetings. That's what we called it, the regular OA. Because the meetings are more convenient and the people are nicer. And so I started going back and forth, still mostly to Cambridge, but back and forth. And the willingness to get a sponsor hit when I was at a regular meeting. I didn't really know what the difference was. But this person said, I can sponsor you, but I don't sponsor food. Is that okay? And my mind, people pleaser, I said, okay, but my mind is going, what else is there? What are you talking about? And so she wanted me to read the big book and talk about my emotions. And she didn't want to hear anything about my food. So I still have that same big book. It's covered with food stains because I would get into bed with it and eat while I was reading. And, I couldn't get abstinent. Anyway, what finally hit me was at one night, I was at a regular OA meeting, and what people were saying was, oh, it's okay if you got into the food today and you had a fight with your boyfriend, you got into the food, that's okay because you're at a meeting. Or you were out sick today from work and you got into the food, but that's okay because you're at a meeting tonight. And then the next day, I went to a Cambridge meeting, and I don't remember who the qualifier was. I just remember she had 6 months of abstinence, and she was sitting there crying her heart out and talking about going through something very difficult and painful in her life, and she was not eating. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. This is where I need to be. I need to be where there is absolutely no wiggle room, because I can justify and rationalize anything. Oh, I'm doing so much better. I would call someone after I'd eaten extra vegetables, and they would say, oh, you're being too hard on yourself. It's just vegetables. And then I called a GreySheeter, and she said, oh, it's vegetables tonight. Tomorrow you'll be into the sugar. And I thought, oh, and I was mad at her for being so brutally honest. And also people would say to me things like, if you want what we have, do what we do. And I thought they were being nasty. And it's because I was an addict. I wanted to do it my way. And the last thing an addict likes to hear is the truth. So I think about it now, like, let's say I love the color purple. And if you have the color red with you and you want to get purple, you need to add blue. Red and blue will give you purple. But I have the color red, and I really like the color yellow. So I'm going to add yellow. Yellow is going to give me orange. No matter how much I want it to be purple, or how hard I try, or how nice I am, or how nice the people are who tell me it's okay to add yellow, I'm going to get orange. So if you want what we have, do what we do. It's just simple. It's not mean. It's just the simple truth. And nobody told me I had to do it. People wanted me to be abstinent, but nobody really cared to the point that they were going to collapse. It finally occurred to me that it was no skin off of anybody's nose except mine if I didn't do this. And the only person that was getting hurt by my not doing this was me. And so one night after it wasn't a big binge, but I found myself eating out of the garbage. I saw my reflection in the kitchen window, and it scared me to death, just scared me to death. And at that moment, I decided to call a GreySheeter and get a GreySheet sponsor. It was a very clear, active decision to join the Cambridge community. And when I say Cambridge, I took the GreySheet and I scoured it with a magnifying glass. There was nowhere on that GreySheet that said without exception. Nowhere. So you could be abstinent in regular OA with the GreySheet, weighing and measuring your food from the GreySheet. But if you wanted to be part of the Cambridge community is without exception. That was the difference. It's not just it is the food plan, because the food plan fundamentally addresses the basic bottom line. I have an allergy addiction. Once I put that food in my mouth, it sets up a craving that is irresistible and insatiable. So I just don't eat that food. How do I do that? I need a community that gives me absolute support and no wiggle room. And the only place I found that was in Cambridge. So in order to get the support of the Cambridge community, I needed to do what that community does, and they do it without exception. And I made a decision that night that I needed the Cambridge way of doing it. And so it's one thing to, want to be abstinent or to try to be abstinent. It's a whole nother ball game to be abstinent. And the first time I weighed and measured in a restaurant, and I remember I was going out to eat with my boyfriend who hated this whole idea. And I said to him, before we go out, I want to talk to you. And he said, usually if someone says that to you, that you're dating, you might be, oh no, he's going to break up with me. No, he said, don't tell me you're going to weigh and measure without exception. And I said, yes, that's what I'm going to do. And I said, and if I have to choose between you and the GreySheet, it's the GreySheet. And it wasn't any kind of, independent, evolved woman decision. It was, I knew I was going to lose myself, that I was going to fall off the planet if I didn't do this. And I needed it. I had to do it. And so that's how it started. And there's nothing like getting abstinent to really clearly see what it means to be an addict with food. And to really realize how often I thought about eating, because the thoughts would come constantly, eat, eat, eat. And it came like a Mack truck, like bam, eat. And before that, my automatic response was to grab for something. But from coming to a lot of meetings and hearing the mantra, no matter what, when I would have the thought, I want to eat, the next thought that would come in was, don't eat no matter what. And I had the privilege of, when I came in, GreySheet really was established, but the people who started it were there, and I saw them at meetings all the time. And they had their, bloody battles about how to get this strong community. And so anyway, I heard Sally a lot. Sally was like the kind of like our Bill W. And she used to say, it's a hand to mouth disease. If I don't put my hand to my mouth, I'm not going to eat. That's simple. Not easy, but that's simple. And I loved that visual because lots of times I would just eat with my hands. But and I thought, well, I could put my face in the bowl, but I never even had a bowl. I just used to grab the carton. But if I don't put my hand to my mouth, I'm not going to eat. Just don't take that first bite. I always thought about food in terms of bags and boxes, because once I opened a bag, it was gone. It was never like take a little and put the bag back in the cabinet. I went to a friend's house one time and she had, some boxes and bags in her cabinet. They were open and there was still stuff in them. And I thought she had staged it because I was staying overnight. I thought nobody can open a bag and leave it there with more food in it. But so I loved that. If I just don't take the first one, and somehow that made it seem possible with the help of God and this the people. Don't take the first one. It's not the caboose that kills you. It's the engine. Just don't take the first one. And Sally also said, think it through. And what the going to meetings gave me was, when I had the thought, I want to eat, then the next thought would come, don't eat no matter what. And that would give me a second or two to pause. And in that pause, that's where I have the chance to be abstinent. The most normal thing in the world for me is to have food thoughts, because I'm a compulsive overeater. It doesn't mean I'm bad or I'm weak or I'm not working my program properly. It means I'm a compulsive overeater. I can be a compulsive overeater and be abstinent. That's such good news. So in that moment between the thought, I want to eat, and the action of put my hand to my mouth, take that moment and decide. It's about the decision. The decision is the hardest part. Once I make a decision that I'm not going to eat, then I just have to make a commitment to that decision and take the action to that decision. And it's not like once in a lifetime we take step 3. Many times during the day, especially at the beginning, many times the food thoughts are going to come. I want to eat. Pause. Don't eat no matter what. Think it through. How am I going to feel after I've eaten? I'm going to feel worse. Guaranteed, I'm going to feel worse. I'd rather not have to feel anything, but if I'm going to feel, I don't want to feel worse. So don't take that first bite, and then do whatever it takes to not eat. And I've learned that to change a thought, move a muscle. I cannot think my way into right acting. I have to act my way into right thinking. So get on my knees, make a phone call, take a shower, go for a walk with no money in my pocket, jump up and down, whatever it takes, just don't eat. And I remember I was working full time at the time I got abstinent, and I would have staff meetings or, seeing a client or whatever. And the thoughts would come just randomly from nowhere. It seemed like hit. And so I would think, don't eat no matter what, and move a muscle. And so I couldn't start jumping up and down in the middle of a staff meeting. So I started to blink with intention. And I would sit there and I would blink and say, don't eat. Don't eat no matter what. Don't eat no matter what. And I don't know how much time I have left. I kind of haven't been, I'll take a few more minutes. Well, the big bottom line decision for me was the community, that I needed this community, because here people were going to be honest with me. When I would call someone, like when I've lost my mother, father, and my only sibling, my brother, in abstinence. And when I call people, they would say, don't eat. How's your food? And outside people would think, that's really cold. Why don't they ask you how I'm feeling? It's like, the most important thing for me is, how's your food? Don't eat. Don't eat. And after we don't eat, then we can help you walk it through. What are you going to do for your food? Have you had breakfast? What are you going to do for your backup? How are you going to get there? They're going to talk to me about how to stay abstinent, because only another GreySheeter can fully appreciate what it means to stay abstinent during a time like this, during any time. So, yeah, I need this community. And the best suggestion I could give around community, there are a lot of people here now, and I had to learn to build my immediate source of help. There's a whole lot of GreySheeters, and I could call anyone and get help with my food or whatever help I might need. So I was encouraged to call people every day and pick a few people, or get used to calling the same people. Call other people too, but also call the same people, and just say, I'm abstinent, and just for today, I don't eat no matter what. That's the whole conversation. Hang up. That's all it has to be, because it was very hard for me to reach out to people I didn't know. Very hard to ask for help. Because then if I'm used to calling a couple of people, when the time comes when I have to call about needing help for food, it will be easier to pick up the phone. I'm used to dialing that number. I'm used to hearing that voice. That person knows my voice. And so it'll be easy for me to tell them what's going on. And I learned not to take a poll. If something happened with my food, don't make a couple of calls and say, tell me what to do until I get the answer I want. Call someone whose program I trust, and whatever they tell me to do, that's what I do. Because the most important thing is surrendering my will around food. And what does that mean? For me, it boils down to follow directions. I can be smart in other ways. I am smart in other ways, but I have to stay dumb around the food. When I came in, I thought I knew a lot about nutrition and I knew a lot about diets and dieting, but I was eating out of the garbage and I couldn't stop eating and I was living on junk food. So, you know, the old phrase, my best thinking got me here. So, I cannot tell myself, I can't give myself advice on what to do. I need to call somebody who has more than 90 days or 90 days or more to get help with my food. So I don't want to take up too much time. I think I've talked long enough. The bottom line is it works. It's not, it's simple, not easy, especially at first. It gets easier and easier. I promise you that. It gets easier and easier. The one other thing Sally used to say is the mental illness of the disease is the built-in forgetter. So how do I remember that I'm a compulsive overeater? How do I remember that weighing and measuring my food without exception is what keeps me sane and in the same size clothes? The answer to all of that is meetings, having a food sponsor and having sponsees and going to meetings and sharing. So anyway, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. I'm happy for everybody who's at this meeting. We are all abstinent today and we can do it together. We cannot do this alone. I certainly couldn't, but we can do it together. So thank you for helping me be abstinent today.